My name is Ev Cochrane, and I was trained as a geneticist at Iowa State, so my first area of interest was biological evolution. And I've kind of branched out from there into the world of comparative mythology. So I would say that's my primary area of expertise at the moment. I just became interested in this science of catastrophism. And I just thought I wasn't going to make a mark necessarily in revolutionizing the field of genetics at 22. So I stumbled across the ideas of Dave Talbot and became interested in that. And so started educating myself in ancient Greek myth and moved, from one culture to the other to where, I'm fairly proficient in ancient Egyptian and Sumerian and Mesoamerican now. So that's kind of that story. I keep my fingers in the biological pie as well, so I'm always writing on evolutionary theory, but again, I just think the revolution is going to be a little late coming there, so probably won't happen in my lifetime, but it just seems like I can make a more immediate impact in the comparative mythology field. I had been very interested and did a lot of graduate work on Wilhelm Reich before I ever heard the name Velikovsky. And so there was a similar situation there where he was blackballed out of Europe, essentially, and then got to America and was essentially blackballed. His books were burned in America, and he was thrown in prison. And as a bizarre coincidence, both him and Velikovsky lived in Princeton, New Jersey in 1939, with very, very close to each other. Yes and no. I mean, the field of comparative mythology is also known as comparative philology. So you would have the top experts in, let's say, Indo-European language. They will agree that there are certain scientific principles behind language. And so to take the leading example, you have the Greek god Zeus. Zeus-like names will be found all around the Indo-European culture. So you'll have it in the Rig Veda, and you'll have it all throughout Europe. And so they will agree that the science of linguistics proves that a Zeus-like figure was very popular, amongst that culture of peoples that took over the world, at that time. And so, as I see it, our research is in the exact same vein. We are all about reconstructing the past of a particular culture, of a particular area, of a particular language, and it just so happens. So, for example, Zeus is definitely a celestial body. There's no doubt about that. The name means heaven and or light, and so we just kind of carry it to the next step. Whereas in mainstream science, Zeus is just some nebulous figure that they don't. They recognize the linguistics of it, they don't go any further. We tend to identify it with a celestial body and then try and reconstruct the earliest religion. Well, it's a complicated story. I've written 5 books on the subject. Dave's written countless hundreds of pages. So it's very, very well documented. But we go back and look at early rock art, for example, that shows Venus depicted as a comet-like body in the sky. And of course, it doesn't present a comet-like appearance today. But so the earliest Sumerian pictograph denoting Inanna, it looks like a comet. It's a circular ball with a flowing tail-like object descending from it. And so, the earliest pictures of Venus depict a comet-like body. The earliest literature describing the planet Venus describe a comet-like body on a catastrophic mission to destroy Earthlings. And so that's pretty compelling evidence. Wall was always interested in Velikovsky's work. Wall and I have been friends for many, many years. I've visited him in Australia a couple times. He's visited my house in America a couple times. But I would say he really got involved in about 94 or so. And he was always interested in the nature of comets. And so he had made a lot of contributions especially over in England. He had written for my journal. But I would say he really blossomed in the mid-90s with trying to figure out the nature of comets and how Venus could present the images that we had reconstructed from ancient history. Venus and Mars were interacting very, very close to the Earth. And so both planets were terribly disturbed and scarred by these disasters. And, you know, again and again and again, the ancient texts say that Venus is shaking heaven and pounding the earth, or, you know, just causing a total catastrophic situation. And so, you know, exactly what nature that catastrophe took is hard to say. But I think certainly Mars dumped a ton of material on the Earth, for example, so we found a lot of Mars rocks on the Earth. But it's unclear exactly how Venus impacted the Earth. One of the key events in ancient history reported all around the world is there is a specific episode where the sky turns black under the influence of Venus's comet-like tail, and you know, it's remembered as the Great Darkness, or you know, the day the world ended. And so the exact nature of that situation is you know, not known with 100% certainty, but certainly it was an absolutely terrifying situation for Earthlings that were used to having some light, and now seeing this dragon-like monster marauding about the sky, causing a profound period of darkness. So. That was way more than that. Yeah, I mean, this was prolonged. So you know, you got to imagine day-long, month-long type of situation, and so this was the mother of all eclipses, and so just like it was the mother of all comets, and so the traditions that came to be associated with both eclipses and comets, like bringing the end of the world, or causing disasters, or bringing pestilence in their wake, or ending kingdoms, those traditions all trace to these events. That's essentially what we've tried to do, is cover as many cultures as possible, and then slowly but surely reconstruct the story. And the more in-depth you get into the story, you can start seeing the effects of Venus and Mars in ancient language as well. And so it's kind of like that Zeus parallel writ large, whereas, you know, Zeus's terms meaning Zeus are found in all of these ancient Indo-European languages, and they always mean roughly the same thing. No one contests that fact. And we've documented the same type of thing with Venus imagery and Venus language in many different languages around the world. Certainly Egyptian and Sumerian and Akkadian. And so, again, Venus will be associated with darkness, for example. Well, why would that be? Otherwise, Venus will be associated with comet-like language. So Venus is a bearded star. Venus is a tailed star. So, you know, again, these are the earliest texts ever written. So the texts on the pyramid walls are 2350 BC. There aren't any earlier Egyptian texts than those, as far as a large body of text is concerned. And so this story is already front and center there. And then if you go over to ancient Mesopotamia, it's already front and center in the very first text, and prior to 2000 BC. So we know that was still a living memory at that time. And over the course of time, those memories are converted, let's say, to pseudo history, or they are diluted in some way, but many of those stories are still apparent even in Homer, many millennia later.